Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Class 1A podcast. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Nimsgren, aka the Big Business Hero Advert, and alongside me I have Apothecary and Fanfic, but you may know them as James Graham and Dylan Beal. And today we are coming at you with our first official ranking episode of Class 1A. I think maybe the shipping episode was kind of close. We talked about it, 3 different ones, but this is the first time we're going to discuss and debate a list that we're going to put out there and be backing. How do you guys feel about that? Does that make you nervous at all?
I'm not nervous at all. I'm excited because I always have the correct opinions anyway, so it's whatever.
Always has the correct. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. But I would like to have some concrete evidence that I can refer back to Dylan with and roast him for. So
I agree. I think it's nice that we're finally putting in there. We've always talked about like, oh, this is our favorite character. We do the plus ultra, so we have like favorite characters of an episode, but this is going through for this episode specifically. I talked about how we're doing the rankings later, but this episode specifically is going to be our top 5 strongest quirks from Class 1A. However, we took that as our own discretion, but that is how we're going to rank the 5 today. But before I talk even about how we're going to go through and rank these, James and Dylan, why don't we go through the beginning of the show, rigmarole, and then we'll jump into that.
Yeah, make sure you tell all your friends about the Class 1A podcast and leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on.
yeah, if you have any suggestions for additional segments, or you get your own list that you want to hit us with that might compete with us, maybe is exactly like one of ours. Who knows? Let us know. Hit us over on Twitter at pop_off, or email us at contact@popoff.com.
Perfect. So before we dive into the actual ranking of the list, this is how we're going to be going through it. Each one of us has a list 5 to 1 with quirks. We're going to go one by one, so Dylan's going to take out lead in just a couple of minutes here, and he's going to talk about his quirk, what his number 5 quirk is, and then we're going to discuss it, debate it, and if any of us have that quirk on our list at the same time, we're going to mention that and discuss it then as well. So if Dylan has, let's say, Endeavor's quirk, we're not talking about that today, but he has Endeavor's quirk, whatever that's called, as his number 5, and I have it as my number 3, I will mention that at the same time as Dylan, so that we don't talk about the same quirks through multiple times throughout the episode. We talk about the quirk once overall. So we might talk about 15 quirks, but more than likely we're going to have a couple of crossovers, and we're just going to talk about them as the episode goes on. Unfortunately, that does mean some of the lists get spoiled early on, but it is the best way to not talk about it for 3 hours. Even though we could, this is kind of how I wanted to do it. So if that makes sense to everyone and you're all excited, you figure it out as we go along. This is our first time kind of going through it too. But Dylan, why don't you tell us what your number 5 strongest quirk is, and you better wipe that smirk off your face and not say something dumb. Don't say something dumb to lead off our first ever ranking podcast. Please.
All right, my number 5 strongest quirk in Class 1A is Pop Off.
Fuck you.
It
knew this was coming.
It's Minetta's sticky ball quirk, Pop Off.
How? Please explain this.
I absolutely think it is one of the strongest quirks, because the supply is near unlimited, in terms of like how much you can actually throw out there, and is one of the stickiest substances, and it's like kind of like selectively sticky too. So I think it's incredibly strong. I think we're way undervaluing the strongness of just locking someone down and making them not be able to move.
James, do you have this anywhere on your list?
I don't have Pop Off anywhere on my list, but I do see the argument as being valid. My question is, though, is it like we know there's a payoff that you need to do with it, because eventually you start bleeding out from where you've taken these balls from. You know what I mean? Like, I know it can be conditioned, but there is like a time limit, right? Does that factor into the strength of the quirk and like how long you can permanently stick somebody down, or are we doing this in like a 1v1 square off when it really doesn't matter?
Well, no, I mean, like, you lock someone down, and then that's where it opens up to you just capturing whoever you're fighting against. Like,
Okay.
And that's another reason why I think it's so strong, is because it doesn't inherently have to like obliterate someone at its strongest. At its very strongest, you're doing exactly what you want to do, and that's lock someone down and be able to haul them away.
I think
it's incredibly strong.
Sidekick quirk at best. I think there are so many quirks that can counter it. I think compared to so many quirks in Class 1A, it can be easily counterable by anyone that can fly. I mean, the amount of skill and accuracy you're going to have to hit anything that's flying, near impossible. any kind of quirk like the shield guy from the Shihatsuki arc, or even gentle that can block things, or in class 1B they have the one that can blow air to stop things. Anything like that can stop the balls from ever sticking to you. Sure, you can find ways to throw it on the ground around them and kind of slow them down, but it doesn't have any kind of offensive ability. It is purely a lockdown quirk, but you have to have someone slow the person down or get them in a situation to lock them down in the first place. So I feel like it's a great 1B quirk, but it needs like a 1A quirk with it. When I'm not talking about classes, but like a hero sidekick to really make the most out of it.
Well, no. So I think hitting things in the air is just as easy as like, I don't know, if you had like a ranged ability. Like you could hit things in the air. It's not impossible. And if anything, it would be good for you because the more you can stick to someone in the air, the more it weighs them down. So I think it's actually really good against things in the air.
Do they have that much
Two,
weight though?
Yeah. I mean, you're throwing like a near unlimited
Math.
amount.
True.
Yeah.
If you hit multiple.
The other thing is too is that I think it's a quirk that like synergizes really well with equipment as well, right? Like I think that can deal with a lot of your long range issues. You basically make like a launcher, right? Like I mean, I don't like, and I like, so I see the argument, but at the same time, it can be nullified with supplements. You know what I mean? Like it, like, and I think we can all agree that like hero equipment is like a very common thing, right? So
I don't think it gets like nullified by a lot of equipment that much. Because I mean, you have a shield, right?
no, well, yeah, exactly. No.
Like,
I'm,
we can
I'm,
do with we can do
I'm
with the
saying
shield.
the argument of that, like either shield, like either being in the air or being at a distance, get nullified. Like the argument of that it doesn't work gets nullified by the user having equipment to basically
Okay,
amplify it, right?
I
Yeah.
just
I mean,
think in
we've
terms.
seen Mineta use like equipment, like Great Buckler before.
Yeah. I just feel like when you're looking at class 1A, I don't feel like it's even in the top 10 for me. I could see some arguments for it. I think you're a little biased, even though it's not about the characters.
I'm
But
not. I think it's incredibly strong.
Alright.
Like I said, I think you guys are undervaluing how strong it is for someone to just not be able to move.
I think you're undervaluing other quirks in class 1A is my biggest thing. James, what's your number 5?
I milled over my number 5 a lot because there was a couple ones that competed for it, but I my number 5 is gonna be Naval Laser, man. It's kind of the opposite of what Dylan was saying, where you're not looking to absolutely obliterate somebody, but Naval Laser absolutely just mills through anything, mills through concrete, like people, doesn't matter, dude. That is a incredibly destructive quirk. And I think it's undervalued in the show and it's underrepresented in the show because of Aoyama's character, but the quirk itself is ridiculous. And and because it's a shonen, you never see it like somebody being literally cut in half by this thing. But he's got a literal lightsaber in his belly button, and that's what the quirk is. It is a laser. So it made my top 5 because of that.
You know, I laughed at first. I don't hate it, actually. I actually think, I mean, because you think Aoyama, it's very hard to take away the quirks from the character
Dissociate,
that you're with. But at its max power, I can actually see how that could be incredibly powerful. And that we haven't seen anything not really been able to be able to stop it. I'm sure there have been some quirks in the show that Aoyama hasn't really ran into that could have, and even Nine in the second movie was able to kind of brush it off pretty easily.
He had like he had like a barrier quirk, right?
So of course,
I
but
mean,
that can stop a lot of quirks. A barrier quirk can stop a
Exactly.
lot of quirks. But outside of that, there's really not too much in the universe that could really stop it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some quirks that can definitely like you go head to head with it as far as stopping power, but yeah, I just like I actually like thought about it critically, and again like disassociating it away from Aoyama, I'm like this is nuts. So yeah, that's why Naval Laser is on my top 5.
Do you think it can cut through Kirishima's Unstoppable or Unbreakable?
I think if it's at like max power, it like I don't know if it's gonna cut through it, but I think it's gonna chew through it decently quick.
Right.
That's
Dylan,
my yeah.
I've kind of talked over you a little bit. Is this one anywhere on your list? It's not on mine. 2, do you have any other thoughts about it?
It's not on my list. I wish it was because I think it's a really good answer, actually.
Yeah. I'm actually glad that both our number 5s are different. And unless you guys have anything more to say, I'll move on to mine, which is also
Yeah.
different. And I think not one that any of us expected. I'm saying acid for Mina. I think
See,
this.
acid was one of the other ones I was like, that was like the other one that I was like, that could do it. Like that's really effective. That's really good.
I mean, I definitely think we've seen her be able to use it in multiple ways, and it's another one like Mineta where it's selective acid because of spoilers that I almost just said, so thank God I didn't say that. But also we've seen her be able to melt through rocks. It can pretty much melt through anything that naval laser can, maybe not at the same rate, but she can also use it to glide and move quickly, which is also a really big thing that is helpful in quirks.
So what I will say though is that the acid I think is a lot more limited than like naval laser, because like acids like typically do have an upper limit to it. So I could see like I think using Kirishima as like a test for this is like pretty good. I think like the ultimate version of his hardening would be able to stop this actually. I don't think like the acid might be able to just go right through it.
But
I think it's very dependent.
unlike naval laser though, naval laser's one clean shot. You put acid on someone, it doesn't just fall off. Even if he's unstoppable, it continues to burn. So it continues to burn until he does find a way to get it off, or until it just burns through him. So I think it's a more slow burning and less flashy than naval laser. I almost want to say naval laser may be stronger at this point now, but I have it on my list and I already said it, and I think at its max, which we have not seen with Mina, it can still be incredibly powerful.
I think the utility is a thing that needs to be mentioned too. Like the jack of all trades that you can kind of really do with it, or as it's been displayed. I think is definitely a credit to the strength of the quirk. Not just in like a 1v1, but like I mean, being able like I mean, it's one thing to sit there and just like blast a laser at somebody, but be able to like outmaneuver somebody with the quirk and like facilitating that, I think is a really good thing to mention for the quirk's like strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna still err on the side of I don't think that the acid is as strong and as fast as it needs to be a top 5.
It can melt through Mineta's balls, though. All I'm saying.
Are you sure? I actually don't think that. I
Is
actually
that
think
canon?
canonically that's
I
not true.
feel like we've seen that somewhere. I don't know why. Someone please correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think it would make sense. Do you think naval laser could go through Mineta's balls? God, I need to stop saying that. Through the pop off
Actually, I
quirk?
think it could.
And I think acid could. All right. Well, actually, I didn't ask. This wasn't on Mina's. Acid was not on anyone else's list, correct?
No, it was not.
Okay. Then Dylan, let's go back to the top of the order and go for your number 4. And you're smirking again, and I hate it.
So I think my bottom 2 are like actually kind of like interesting ones. So my 4th is Anna Voice actually.
Oh,
It's
dude.
Coda's ability. I think the ability to call on and befriend like every animal is really strong, like incredibly strong, especially if it's like well thought out too. Like if I'll use the meme. If he had like prep time, like that's pretty unreal. Like if he knows like what kind of environment he's going up into, like he can. It's not limited to just like, oh, it's just mammals or anything. It's literally everything. He can call them bugs. Like I think that is like super super strong, and like I can imagine like him walking like about to show up someplace, calling on a bunch of animals and just showing up with like a crew, like literally just like a huge just like stampede of animals and bugs like with him.
I think a big reason why this is like arguably on a list is because we don't know the limitations of it. It's a very vague quirk right now, as displayed in the show. We don't really know all the parameters, and we haven't really seen a weakness other than the character's own own weakness, right? But if you remove that, I think it's insane. And then the strengthening we've seen has been for distance, not like effectiveness, right? So that means the quirk is already incredibly potent, which we've seen. I have a hard time arguing against this, right? Especially again, like you said, if there's any prep time. I think in rural environments, it's pretty good. In a city, I think it's because you're getting like all the sewer life and stuff like that.
Yeah,
man.
you're getting sewer life. You're still getting bugs. You're still getting birds. There's a lot of rats in cities.
Yeah, it's hard, dude. It's hard to make like an argument against it, right? Like it is.
There's very few places you can go that like you won't get anything from this. Like you can go inside someone's house you can get a lot of spiders.
Oh, don't
Yeah.
say that. Don't say that. Let's not go there. But I also think something to take into mind, if you take out the weaknesses of any of Class 1A's quirks, they can be considered incredibly powerful. Because most quirks in Class 1A, their weaknesses are character flaws. A couple of them have exceptions, but most of them come with character flaws. So I think that is easy to make it. But I still agree that I think this is an incredibly strong one. And I mean, it is a power you've seen in multiple kind of universes and shows, and it's always incredibly powerful in anyone because, like Dylan said, it can be used anywhere. Not in my top five. I even hearing the argument, I still don't think I'd include it in my top five because I think I took a little bit of a different angle with my number four. But
Mhm.
James, what do you got?
I gotta go with electrification. I gotta go with Common Ares. It's you're basically Thor, dude. Like like it's hard to find. Like I mean, despite the backlash, like I mean, you're absolutely nullifying somebody unless they have a quirk that counters it. Other than that, getting shocked with like a million volts is, it's really hard to deal with. It's hard to combat that, right? And we've also seen as well that it can be also pinpoint or a wide range, right? So that gives you both effectiveness in a 1v1 or multiple attackers, right? So
So I actually disagree with this one.
okay, here we
I,
go.
I thought about this one pretty thoroughly. I think electricity, out of any kind of ability, is the easiest to counter. I mean, there's a lot of material out there to like negate the conduction of electricity. So like I totally agree that if like you showed up and you didn't know it was coming, like you're
Yeah.
screwed. But like if you have
Yeah.
any semblance of like knowing what you're going up against, I think this is fairly easily countered.
I think the prep time factor is a thing that deals with it one way or another. But a lot of the times, you like, I mean, within the hero society, it's you understand which heroes kind of patrol an area more or less. But if they're one of the bigger heroes, you don't know where they're going to show up. And I think electrification has the capability to break in, maybe not to the top 10, but the top 15 realm, where those guys just kind of travel everywhere. So I think because you always have that unexpectedness of prep time, it still makes it fairly effective.
So
Not again, like
I just
yeah,
want to add a little clarification. So they do call them in for bigger jobs, but you actually still have an agency and like a quote unquote
true.
patrol area.
Yeah, good. Yeah, very true. Yeah.
But
That's why
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have sidekicks, dude. That's why you have people who disable those kind of things, right? Like,
I I mean, a top five quirk that relies on sidekicks to make it super effective isn't really a top
but
five
I think,
quirk. Is all I'm saying.
I think, like you definitely do not need them. Yes, it can be negated, but it's pretty goddamn powerful, dude. It's just fucking raw lightning. Like,
I mean, yes, I think it's a cool quirk. Don't get me wrong. I love the quirk idea, and everyone can say that. Like, if you had like a top 25 list of like powers, electric's probably on there. You put it into Class 1A, it falls short, especially in the quirk world. I kind of agree with Dylan. I don't think it's a horrible pick, but it's not there.
it's not weak. I think it's just outclassed by
Yes.
other stuff.
that's fair. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because my next person could outclass it on the spot, and that's why it's creation.
Quirks, not people. Quirks, not
Creation from Yaoyorosa. I think this is an incredibly powerful situation when you take it out of Yaoyorosa's hand, because if someone trains in 15 different types of weapons from range to close combat, you can have an arsenal of weapons, including giant weapons such as cannons from a distance. If you're going against electric quirks, you can create a anti-electric blanket, which we've already seen her do, and save her and Jiro. I think it can be used in any situation. I think against a high power quirk, she can have issue. The quirk can have issues against an Endeavor like quirk, but I think for a hero, this is an incredibly powerful quirk that could be used, which we already see. What's one of the heroes in the top 10 is like the equipment hero. The creation can be the next equipment hero.
So the one reason why I don't like this is just because like there are so many quirks that can just completely just like overpower, like with raw power, just like a push beyond it. And like I think about someone like Benetta, right? You think like you're going up against Yaoyorozu, right? Or you're the two people, these two quirks are going up against each other. You just throw a bunch of sticky balls in a circle and you walk away. Or you do a snare, you literally make a snare, throw it, and you walk away. Like I think it's incredibly strong. I think the situational aspect of it gives it like plus a million to it and makes it like very viable to be a hero that just makes stuff. But I don't think fighting against other quirks it necessarily wins all the time. I think it beats out a lot of stuff, but I think it's really limited by making like human things. It's not like you're making extraordinary quirk things. You're just making things.
Yeah. Yeah, my big bone to pick with it too is that the user doesn't have any amplified combat prowess at all. Like it doesn't like this quirk doesn't really um enable the user to do more other than, either creating weapons, equipment, armor, stuff like that. But that doesn't really do anything from, especially with the prep time too, right? Like I mean, there is a noticeable time where the thing needs to manifest into their hands. And I mean, again, like using the show as an example, like we saw Tokoyami, who wasn't empowered at all, just completely overpower somebody because you have that prep time in order to needing to like actually make it, and you have and even like I'd argue even acid would beat it out because you can just get there super fast while they're trying to create this thing, and you just win immediately, right?
There's also like the fact that you need to use stored fats to make things,
Hmm.
and there is a limit on like how much fat you can store unless you have a quirk specifically for storing fats,
Like
which
fat gum.
this isn't. Or like
Yeah.
fat gum with this would be unstoppable, but like because like you're limited by human fats and stuff, it is pretty hard. Because like think about the cannon. The cannon just like took Yagorozu out, which is like it is a limit of that person inherently, but like I wouldn't expect you can make anything too much bigger with just normal human stored fat.
But you also got to think she's like 14 years old, and that took her out. So you
No,
put
but
up.
even like a big adult man, like it's like the amount of like fat stored, like it's not like it's a crazy amount of where suddenly you can make these giant like airplanes, like fighter jets or anything like that. It's like you're still kind of limited to like things that aren't just way bigger than you, you know?
Yeah, but I definitely took this question as hero quirks. That top 5 strongest hero quirks is how I did. Like I said, it's our each of our own interpretations, and I think as a hero, this. I mean, it's the exact same thing as equipment. When I think of creation, I think of the equipment hero. It is a. I don't know exactly what his quirk is. I don't know if we ever learn what his quirk is, but I see it as a very similar way that being prepared for any situation as a hero and then honing your combat prowess can lead to an incredibly strong hero.
Yeah,
Never a
but
top 3 hero, but an incredibly strong one.
no, but I totally agree with your sentiment because I do think it's a strong hero quirk. But I think even villains have really strong quirks that I think could just overpower something like this.
I think prep time is a huge factor with this because it is not a reactionary quirk. It is a preparation quirk.
It
I think
can be reactionary.
Well, no, it is a little reactionary, but like it's not like an instant reaction. You do
Yeah,
need a little bit of time.
yeah,
But
and I
I do want to spell it out as reaction though because that is a huge plus to it.
yeah, and I think the time factor and the lack of physical amplification is like the two things that I'm like those are my two bones to pick with it.
All right, that's fine. I think our next 3 quirks are all going to be exactly the same.
This is
So-
where they land.
Is there any other honorable mentions in the 4 and 5 slots that you really wanted to add, but you just couldn't do? Because I'm personally surprised none of us said Dark Shadow. Is one I thought someone would say. I know the obvious weakness to it that would go with anyone, but I still think it's an incredibly powerful quirk with that weakness.
Yeah,
It's
I
it's
guess
too-
I guess it's strong, but like I think the weakness of light is just too big of a weakness to make it like an incredibly strong thing.
And the other thing is too, for me, it wasn't just the light, but it's the excessive darkness is also a weakness as well. Yes, the quirk becomes all powerful, but I don't know if like I mean I know unfortunately our only sample size is Tokoyami and how he manipulates it, but because of how destructive Dark Shadow is represented when it's like fully encased in darkness. I don't know if anybody, regardless of conditioning, will ever be able to handle that
Fair.
amount of like raw destructive power, right? Which I think is just a massive liability, right? So I was like, I mean, the light is obvious, yeah, but that was more of a concern for me too. Was like when it's the most powerful, it's also the most like uncontrollable, right?
Yeah. Any other quirks you want to discuss quickly? Or
I don't. I think one of my top three is not where everybody
Really?
else lines up. Yeah.
Okay, then let's
I
dive.
can't wait to absolutely demolish you.
I
then,
am too. If
because-
it's not the same top three as me and Dylan, you're getting demolished, my kid.
Oh,
All right,
man.
Dylan, what is your number 3?
I think number 3 is fairly obvious. It's explosion.
Yep, that's exactly
Bakugo's
what I have
Warp
at 3 as well.
Explosion. I think it's very strong because it's literally raw power. Like you're just blowing stuff up, and it's based in nitroglycerin, which has been used to like explode mountains apart. I think there is a certain limit to it because it is nitroglycerin in terms of what you can blow up. Like some material might just be too hard to actually blow up, which I think that is a huge limiting factor to this. But the size of the explosion is kind of unlimited, so as long as you can bust through it, it's nasty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the only downside to the quirk for anyone is that theoretically, even in combat, you could use up all of your power. I mean, it is something that you can store up in the grenades, like we see with Bakugo's in however many ways, and as he gets older, he may store it up in more ways and actually put clothes on. But I think it is still something you can run out to, and I don't think there's many quirks that can really combat it, even though it is at number 3.
This with explosion though, like I mean, even with Bakugo, the user, the more they use the quirk, the more sweat they generate. So it's kind of like this like ridiculous cycle of like, yes, it does have a time limit, but the time limit is like ridiculous in comparison to some other quirks, right? So I agree. It's 100%. It's insanely effective.
Yeah, and it has utility that we've seen with his in-air combat skills very early on in Season 1 when they're doing the 2-on-2 training. We've seen him be able to literally fly with it.
Fly.
So I think the utility, the strength, I think so much of it is there for him to obviously ideally be maybe the number 1 hero, number 2 hero, number 3 hero, whatever it is. Like this is clearly something not to be messed around with. Yeah, it's hard to even talk about it too much because we all just know how badass it is. But
Yeah.
let's move,
I'm scared now. I'm really scared for getting to number 2.
because I think James is about to do something dumb. Okay, so all 3 of us had it at number 3. Just want to make that clear. Yes,
Had a number 2.
that was
You
your
had
number
number
2.
two.
So James, what was your number 3?
My number 3, that I think gets really overshadowed because of the user, is zero gravity.
What
think zero-
the fuck?
I think
No.
zero
No.
gravity is insane, dude.
Nope.
Zero
Yeah.
gravity is nuts.
Nope.
So the reason why I would say no to this is because I did think about this. If you have any sort of momentum ability, it's fine. Like zero gravity is incredibly debilitating. I will give it to you as someone like I know someone who doesn't really have any like Shigaraki, right, where you just touch stuff.
Yeah.
It literally shuts him down. And I totally agree with you there. But if you have any sort of like movement ability, like Bakugo, right, you just explode.
Right,
stuff
but,
and move it.
but that's also why I put Bakugo at or like explosion at number 2, right? I
No,
do
no, but
think
I think there's so many of those though. So many that if you get the littlest bit of momentum, it's fine.
I think with like how many though with class 1A is there really, like out of those quirks do we get, momentum build? We have maybe naval laser, right? If it hits something.
Do you want me to walk through you all the different quirks that can counter it in
Yeah.
class
We
1A
can literally
alone?
so it's naval laser, acid. Asui has her tongue that can grab onto things. Ida literally has engines that shoot out of his legs.
Todoroki can freeze her in her place. Deku can
Right.
jump away.
No, Deku can also just wave his arms too.
I mean, I guess like I don't
You
I
can
don't
use
know.
Dark Shadow to push her away.
The other thing is though too is that like zero gravity like trained gets them like even higher. You know what I mean? You can straight up suffocate somebody with this quirk
Great.
if it's powerful enough.
You have to still get to him. Kaminari does an AoE blast as she's running towards him. She dies.
Well, again, we've negated freaking electrification with prep time, right? I don't know. I think I'm sold on zero gravity being ridiculous. The user just needs to be like good at getting to somebody.
I love it.
I-
If you could have multiple quirks, this is such a good quirk to have. If you could say, I want to pick 3 quirks from the universe, this is an amazing quirk to have. By itself, it is so limited in what it can do that if you cannot touch the person, and even if you do touch a person like Shigaraki, great. He's zero gravity. He's holding onto your arm, disintegrating you. Like or Endeavor, you're gonna burn alive if you touch Endeavor. Like, congratulations.
I mean, there's parts of Endeavor that aren't like on fire, right? I think its effectiveness is. I really think it's not showcasing the show properly. I really don't.
No,
I
I totally
agree.
agree with you. I totally
Not top
agree
3.
that it's not. Yeah, but I think it does get beat out by so many other things.
You wait, boys. You wait.
Oh
Its
my-
time is coming. Its time is coming.
Okay, so
No, the reason why I'm so upset at this is that means that
Todoroki so half hot, half cold, or all for one is not in your top 3. In your top 5.
One of them
Wait,
didn't
wait,
make.
hold on. Which? So are you saying
No,
that half cold, half hot is not on your list?
don't. We're going through the fucking list. Don't ruin this. Okay, so to be clear, me and Dylan, explosion at 3. James, explosion at 2.
Yep.
James, zero gravity at 3. So now we'll go on to Dylan and I's second. I'll take it since we went through your third. My second is half cold, half hot.
Easily.
Arguably
Easily.
the one strongest quirk in the world, if it wasn't for the number 1 quirk, which we all know what it's going to be right now because it's literally the unkillable god of the universe quirk. How
It's
can
two-
this not
it's
be
two
there?
quirks.
Because
It's 2 top quirks. Half cold, half
Okay.
hot is literally 2 top quirks.
so instead of fighting for it, how can this not be in your top 5 list, James? Please give the argument.
Please say you just forgot about it.
I didn't forget about it. I deliberately did it because I think having the exact same 3 top.
No,
Top
this is
3
drama to cause drama. This isn't a real ranking.
I legitimately looked at this and I was like, what is another quirk I can make an argument
Your
for?
ass picked Kaminari over Todoroki, and you're telling me with a straight face you think Kaminari could beat Todoroki in a fight? That those
We've never
quirks,
seen it. We don't know. We don't know, dude.
this quirk has frozen an entire half a stadium. 70,000 people frozen in an instant.
And also, like, think about Endeavor. Endeavor, one of the strongest people in the universe.
I agree, but we're getting like the mismatch like of both. You know what I mean? Like he's not 100% fire. It's not Hellfire, right? We don't get.
But it literally counters Endeavor's only weakness, which is overheating. He's stronger than Endeavor. He can't overheat.
I mean, like, okay, all right, fair. Maybe my argument for zero gravity in
Is
place
weak?
of hot and cold
It's weak?
is a little sus. It's a little.
You're very lucky that I want to save the listeners' ears, because otherwise I would have just started.
I don't care.
screeching.
I don't care. I am livid right now. I thought Mineta at 5 was bad. Todoroki not being in the top 5 in Class 1A of only 20 people is dumbfounded. Like, I don't know if I can trust you on rankings anymore. So I don't know how to feel about this or trust you as a co-host anymore. This
Oh
is
wow, you don't even trust me now.
astronomical. Okay.
So, and once again, I think this just solidifies that I have the best opinions.
No, I don't agree with that either.
Yeah.
We're not giving you any points here. We're taking away points from you and taking away points from James. Everyone's losing points here. Okay,
Yeah.
please.
Can we talk about the number 1?
Yeah, for the love of God.
We all know the number one is.
We
all know.
all have All for One at number 1, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, if you look at All Might and what he's been able to do with it, just having this like incredible strength takes you so far, and you can do basically anything and be unstoppable for the most part.
And
Yeah.
we can see that there are so many ways to use it, because the nice part is this is one of the few quirks where we can kind of take it away from the person, because we've seen 2 different people use it and see 2 different styles of how it's being used. All Might is all punchy superhero god mode. Deku because he can't handle it right now, has air bursts. He uses his legs more. He's creating energy with his legs and fingers alone, which are things that All Might could have incorporated into his kit to make him even stronger. Because we never really, he maybe did that, but he never taught that
Never
to
had
Deku.
to.
So
Yeah,
I would assume
exactly.
he didn't. I mean, with that air blast, would it be incredibly successful with All Might as well, and be even more powerful because you could use more fingers. So I think.
We saw the like we see him use an air blast. It was just incorporated with a punch. Like I mean, that was
That's
the
true.
first.
That's
It's the
true.
first
Yeah.
demonstration of like his power is like he literally changes like the weather, right?
That
So
is
I mean,
true.
I think All For One, the reason why it is so solidified at the top is because you again like exactly you get so many different representations of a strength quirk, and it's manifested in so many different ways,
And we
right?
see what it is at max strength too, which is
We
makes
also-
it very hard. We know what the top tier of this skill could be at a minimum if Deku doesn't find a ways to improve upon it.
Yeah, because I mean, like I think if it was just represented to us with Deku and not with All Might, you can make an argument for like Sugar Rush being like on par with it because they're both just strength quirks, right? Like that's just it, and one doesn't actually beat the shit out of your body, right? Like Sugar Rush, it makes you sleepy. Where with this, like we saw like Deku like blowing limbs apart, right? Because the power, like I mean, and that is a very common trend within the My Hero Academia universe is that the power put into somebody, their body can't handle it, right? So I think because we did get to see this massive representation of how All Might like manipulated this quirk, it really solidifies it as number one. You can't go against it, right?
I agree. I'm sorry. I just had to kind of catch my breath here. I am still breathing hard, and my heart is beating fast from the number 2 discussion still. But yeah, I just think it's so hard not to put this as number 1. It's a main character. Of course, he's the most strongest. Any shonen's main character's ability is going to be the strongest. But you have to put it here because there's a reason that when you're ranking the top 5 quirks, this was really a conversation about 2 through 5, not about number 1, because that's just how shonens work.
Yeah, and we are talking about class money, obviously, because I mean, you throw other stuff in there,
You can
you
make
get
arguments.
you get wash up into
Stop
the
it.
mix, like maybe be different.
Top 5 most used quirks, wash them.
We don't actually know what Wash's quirk
I
is.
want to know what it does.
Idea, right? But yeah, I think if you do start putting like other like main cast characters into there, like Eraser just takes out half the cast, if not more, right? Like I mean, he nullifies so many powers.
Nope.
But yeah, I think there again, if we didn't have All Might as showing like the pinnacle, there would be a different conversation, I think.
Probably. Okay. With that, let's go through each of our list 5 to 1. Dylan, what is your list 5 to 1?
My list 5 to 1 is Pop Off, Anna Voice, Explosion, Half Cold, Half Hot, and One for All.
James?
So we got Naval Laser, Electrification, Zero Gravity, Explosion, One for All.
God, what a horrible list. Just mind-blowing. Mine was Acid, Creation, Explosion, Half Cold, Half Hot, All for One. And that comes to the end of our first ever rankings. We'll go out putting this on social media. You can go back and quote us on this in the future. Maybe in a year or two, after a couple more seasons, or we see more quirks, we come back and do this again and see if our thoughts change as these quirks develop, or if they're exactly the same in a couple of seasons or movies or whatever we want to do like that. But what do you guys think of the ranking? Do you guys enjoy that format? Do you think that's a good one?
Yeah,
I like that. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I think ranking episodes are something we can do more of. We've really just like avoided them for so long.
We didn't know how
And
to do it, and I definitely want to hear feedback from everyone. Like, if you thought this was a mess and it was hard to follow, let us know, and we'll just go 5 to 1. Everyone talking about their own quirks. If you thought this was good, let us know about the format. Totally testing this out. There's 1,000 things you could rank in an anime universe, so we will do more ranking episodes in the future. So let us know, what do you want us to rank, and let us know if you like the format we did do today. But with that, you guys ready to wrap up the episode?
Let's do it.
Man.
That's
So
a
you-
cue.
Yeah, that is me. Yeah. So yeah, make sure to tell all your friends about the Class 1A podcast and hit it with that 5-star review on whatever podcasting platform you listen to us on.
Make sure you check out poppedoff.com and twitter.com/popped_off for updates on this and all the other stuff we do.
But with that, that'll be all for this week's episode of Class 1A. Make sure to let us know your top 5 strongest quirks in Class 1A as well on Twitter, DMs, Instagram, email, however you want to let us know. But with that, we'll see you back in class next Saturday.